I got involved with World Vasectomy Day in 2017. Actually, the first time I met them was in Delhi. We came to India to meet with some of the members of the Ministry of Health, since India has a vasectomy fortnight, and they have really sort of adopted it and run with it. So, World Vasectomy Day was kind of a revolutionary idea. I had worked in comprehensive sexuality education and done a lot of education around family planning. And yet my knowledge of vasectomy was really, really limited. And I think that's a reflection of how little we consider it as an option. And that raises a lot of questions on why we don't consider it or promote it. And the more I've learned about it, the more I feel like it is a key to a whole realm that we do not often consider in the family planning and sexual and reproductive health and rights field. Men, I think, are seen as sort of a threat to be neutralized when we think of violence or we think of contraception. You know, it's like manage them, manage their abuse, or manage the threats they present to our ability to choose, manage the contraceptive failures that they might introduce. And there is so little narrative on transformative opportunities to include men as agents of change, as allies, as people that can drive these missions forward. I think we think pregnancy and contraceptive failure impacts women, and so we look to women to carry that forward. But we're sort of doubling down on the burden that women have to carry without thinking about how we can do more sharing of that burden and more inviting men to the table. And so that has been sort of the crux of World Vasectomy Day, is it's about taking a procedure and a very specific call to action, but largely using it as a conversation tool and a starter to say, how are you contributing? How can you contribute? You know, do you cost share your partner's birth control pills? Are you helping with childcare on the days that she is menstruating and not feeling well? Are there ways that you can be a more proactive supporter of her rights as a reflection of you as a couple and the beyond the couple, in your families, your friends, the community around you? What are ways that you're supporting that burden that you contribute to but don't feel the impacts of? And so it's a lot about sort of the communication of what is a vasectomy, which is also totally unknown. I mean, it is a 15-minute outpatient procedure. There are no stitches. There's no scalpel. Like it couldn't get easier. There are no risks. There are so few long-term impacts. Everything about the procedure makes it one of the best in the contraceptive field. And yet women get tubal ligations globally at a rate of like 80 to 20. I mean, you look at the two procedures and one is vastly superior. You know, tubal ligation is an invasive procedure. It is 2 to 3 weeks recovery time. And a failed tubal ligation is an ectopic pregnancy that threatens the life of the woman. Men's procedure, 15 minutes, outpatient, no stitches. You're supposed to rest for 48 hours. You know, it is a totally outpatient procedure. And a failure of that procedure, which is never, but when it does happen, is still, you result in a healthy pregnancy. You know, across every metric, the vasectomy procedure is superior, and yet we're seeing hugely disproportionate numbers of women still seeking tubal ligations. And that's a failure. That's a failure in our part to, in the contraceptive world, to make individuals aware of that procedure and to remove barriers to access. So that is a small piece of just very actionable shifting responsibility for contraception, shifting healthcare risk. You know, if you're undergoing a procedure, helping to share that. But it also reflects these larger opportunities to view men as allies. And not just that, but as really positive agents of change. Can they come in and sort of support this movement? And can we see them as supporters and real partners in this? And so when I think about how we move forward, I think about ways to invite male friends, family members, and partners to the table and say, how can you show up? How can we devise ways for you to understand the implications I face as someone with a uterus that you don't? And how can we work together to address some of the burdens that I face disproportionately because I have a uterus and you don't? And the more that we can engage in those conversations, the more that we can be clear about what we expect of the men in our lives and how they can show up. And the more we make procedures available to them to act on it when it's right for them, when they've decided they don't want to have any more children, that feels like it can be sort of a quiet revolution. And we need to be in mass to address a lot of these ongoing issues, especially in abortion access. And when we think about sort of the long-term goals that we have of truly unfettered access, the end of stigma, affordability, it requires a united front. And I think removing the us versus them mentality and inviting more people to the table, speaking more openly, is a way that we can really harness the collective power and collective drive and seek and maintain the big changes that we really want to see in the field of abortion and broader sexual and reproductive health and rights. And it starts with education and it ends in action.